Hello everyone and welcome to the Arbor Farm. In this episode I want to show you how you can increase your dahlia stock by taking dahlia cuttings. Let's get started. First of all, let's answer the question of why you might want to take dahlia cuttings. Well, the best reason is that dahlia cuttings create an exact copy of the plant. It's like cloning it, for example. If you take a cutting, or I take a cutting of this purple colored dahlia, I'm going to get a flower from my new plant that results in exactly the same appearance. So dahlia cuttings are great for making an exact copy of the plant. The second reason you might like to take dahlia cuttings from your dahlias is because it allows you to increase your stock without having to buy new tubers or new plants. And so it speeds up the time that you have to wait for a tuber to grow. For example, we could take 3 or 4 or so cuttings from a single plant, and we could have that many more new plants in the amount of time that we wait for one tuber to grow and to multiply into 8 or 10 or however many the case might be new tubers from that plant. And the third reason that you should consider taking cuttings from your dahlias to increase the stock is that it's budget friendly. It costs almost nothing to create a new plant from a cutting. Sure, you have the price of the dirt or whatever soil, the grit that you're using to propagate the cutting, maybe the cost of some rooting powder, and maybe the cost initially of some pots. And depending on the season, you might want to use grow lights if it's winter time. So they are a cost-effective way to multiply your plants and to create more dahlias that are so beautiful for your family and your friends to enjoy. Let's get started on how to create a cutting. One of the most important things that I consider about taking a cutting is the genetics of the plant itself. I want to look for a plant that has good genetics. For example, I want a plant that has a good long vase life. Since I'm a flower farmer, that's the purpose, is to have a long vase life. One that is beautiful in appearance. So for example, I want one that has nice, even petals. And then I also want to consider the length of stems. Sometimes they get such short stems, like here, I'll show you this one. Sometimes they get such short stems that I can only use this for a mini bouquet, but if I like it, I can go ahead and clone it and take a cutting. But usually I'm looking for ones that have nice long stems, and so those are my considerations for what plants I choose to take cuttings from. To take a cutting from my dahlia, I'm looking for a portion of the plant like this that has a stem and then it has leaves coming out the side. That's what I need to use to make my cutting. And so I'm going to look for a plant that is like that. Sometimes I might also double my cutting with taking a flower off at the same time, if I can use that for a bouquet, and then using this part, saving this portion for my cutting. Alright, I've looked through our dahlia patch and located a couple of flowers that I'm interested in. This is a new one to our patch this year. I don't really know what it's called. I haven't taken the time to look it up yet, but it's a new one in our patch that I'd like to have more of. And so I'm gonna go ahead and take a cutting. There's a spot down lower on the plant that I can use, and so I'm gonna take my snips and take a cutting from it. So here's what I have included in my cutting. I have the main stem, and then I have some leaves that come out the side. So I'm gonna take that up to my area where I prepare my cuttings, and I'll show you how we do that. To create my cuttings, I've got my plant material, a little water, a small pot with a mixture of peat and grit to allow for drainage. I've got some rooting powder and a sharp knife. If you're a professional, you'd use a scalpel, but we are not professionals, and so we just use a sharp knife. So to create your cutting, I'm going to show you on the big one here first, because it's going to be easier to see. But what we need to do is just cut about a centimeter or so below this leaf node. And then about the same distance above the leaf. So that you have a piece that looks like that. Now we can get 2 cuttings from this by just cutting down the center. So that's the next step. Now I'm gonna take my cutting and cut it down the middle of the stem so that I have 2 sides that have a leaf node. So now in essence I have 2 cuttings, and there's what that looks like up close, a stem with a leaf cutting off it. We don't need the entire leaf, so we like to trim those down so that the plant doesn't have to work to sustain them while it's growing leaves. So we're just gonna cut the extra leaves off of the plant. We're ready now to dip our cutting into the rooting powder. Just get a good amount so that it covers the bottom of that cutting there. And then you can stick it into your soil. I like to leave it so that it is barely sticking up above the dirt. Continue that for the other cutting as well. And that one is ready to be watered in. Take a little of my water. You want to be careful not to blast it with a hose so that it, dislodges your cutting. That kind of defeats the purpose of all of that rooting powder that you just added. Let that soak in, and then add some more so that it's nice and moist. After your dahlia cutting has been watered in, we've found the most effective method to accomplish rooting is to place it under a grow light, under a humidity dome, or as an alternative solution to a humidity dome, you can also use a Ziploc storage bag. But those combinations, keeping the cutting moist and giving it about 12 to 14 hours of light a day, helps to achieve a successful cutting over time. If you have any questions about this episode or how to increase your stock by producing cuttings from your dahlias, feel free to drop them to us in the comments below, and we are always happy to hear from our subscribers. Thank you for taking time out of your schedule to join us for today's episode. If you found information in this episode helpful, we'd like to ask that you'd click the like and the subscribe button so that you can receive further notifications as to the content when we post new updates. Thank you for joining us. Have a great day.